ubujiji ni inzitizi ku iterambere. Buri mwana w'umunyarwanda agomba kwiga. Ubumenyi inzira y'iterambere. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Gusesagura n'ubupfapfa. Zirikana ko iyo mbimenya ari ijambo ribi maze ukoreshe neza imari yawe. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
Good evening, dear listener. Thank you for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Hear the news in English, brought to you by Alvin Umngali. The headlines. President Paul Kagame addresses delegates during the African Conference for Peace that is underway in Mauritania on Wednesday, January 18th. Religious leaders have pledged to put more efforts in fostering truth, healing, and reconciliation among Rwandans as the country continues to recover from the effects of the genocide against the Tutsi. The Ministry of Education, through the Rwanda TVET Board, RTB, has kicked off a feasibility study phase to establish TVET centers of excellence in all 30 districts of the country. Morocco and Israel has agreed to strengthen their military cooperation by expanding it to intelligence and cybersecurity during a bilateral defense meeting in Rabat. Gambia's President Adama Barrow said on Tuesday that his Vice President Badara Aliou has died of illness in India. We'll be back shortly with news in detail. Thank you. Welcome back. President Paul Kagame told world leaders that while peace is the backbone of sustainable development, poor governance erodes stability. Kagame made the remarks on Tuesday, January 17th, during the African Conference for Peace underway in Mauritania. The conference aims to fight against extremist and radical discourses. Launched as a joint initiative between the Mauritanian government and the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace in January 2020, this year's forum is convening several heads of states, high-ranked government officials, United Nations agency representatives, civil society, as well as the youth.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thanking Abdallah bin Baya for the invitation to speak with you today. I also commend His Excellency President Mohamed Ghazouani for hosting this forum. Peace is the backbone of sustainable development. Poor governance erodes stability. As Rwanda embarked on its transformation journey after the genocide, building strong institutions to establish unity and trust was the top priority. This equipped our nation with a solid foundation for long-term security and prosperity. Preserving peace, however, is a collective effort. Terrorism and violent extremism are crossing borders and spreading rapidly, causing harm to communities worldwide. Africa is no exception. This is why, as a country, we have made a deliberate choice to contribute to counter-terrorism and post-conflict reconstruction on our continent. We live in a more globalized and interconnected world. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to this challenge because the context matters. The African Peace Conference is an opportunity to strengthen cooperation. What Africa needs the most is the political will to put its resources together to address the root causes. With peace and security, we can address challenges such as climate change, migration, and food insecurity, making Africa even more resilient against future shocks. We owe this to our youth, the future of our continent. The question is whether we can put our differences aside, listen to one another, and work together as equal partners. Once again, thank you for the invitation to speak. I wish you productive discussions, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Following the funds secured from the Korean Exim Bank, the Ministry of Education through the Rwandan TVET Board RTB has kicked off a feasibility study phase to establish TVET centers of excellence in all 30 districts of the country. Speaking during a planning workshop that brought together different stakeholders with the aim of delivering the objective and operational strategies for the future of the to-be-established centers on January 18th, Paul Umukunzi, the Director General of Rwanda TVET Board, said it is expected that the first students will be enrolled in the schools in the next 2 years, adding that the schools will serve as the role model to all other schools in the district in basic education. The Ministry of Education has mandated the Center of Global Creation and Collaboration of the Samyung University based in South Korea to develop a feasibility study for the centers. It will determine the project scope, programs, and components by identifying the strategic positioning of each TVET center of excellence. Umukunzi disclosed that the feasibility study is expected to end in late June, adding that some schools will be built, other expanded, while those with existing infrastructure will be provided with modern technology equipment. He declared that these schools will be aligned with top skills of the future and fourth industrial revolution, including artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, industrial automation, and big data management, as well as production and manufacturing technology. He noted that the schools will be equipped with modern technology as well as competent facilitators, helping the graduates to be competent in both local and regional markets. The Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement held a meeting with various leaders of various faith-based organizations on Tuesday, January 17th, aimed at discussing ways of working together towards healing, unity, development, and good relations among Rwandans. According to the Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement, Jean Damascene Bizimana, faith-based organizations play a big role in assisting the government by teaching people the importance of the truth, forgiveness, and proper upbringing of children. He said faith-based organizations have contributed tremendously in healing and reconciliation, and later came up with documents in which they pledged to be more involved, and also highlighted that there is still a lot of work to be done since there are many people who are in need of healing. George Nkurunziza, the in charge of spiritual growth at African Evangelistic Enterprise Rwanda, a local Christian NGO dedicated to working with children, youth, families, and communities to address the root causes of poverty, say there is still a big problem in regard to the fact that religions don't have a consistent platform where they can discuss issues of unity, reconciliation, and development of Rwandans. He said we need such a platform. Sheikh Suleiman Barushimana, the advisor of the Mufti of Islam in Rwanda also urged religious leaders to put effort in complementing the government's effort of building a peaceful Rwandan society. He said, "We are currently writing a book that will provide knowledge about the responsibility of believers in protecting the lives of the fellow people. Religious leaders have the responsibility to provide answers to the people." For Reverend Pastor Hesron Jiringiro, known as Mchisi, the leader of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Rwanda, one of the most important things that religious leaders should do is making sure they understand what is needed for the healing and reconciliation of the Rwandans, and then go ahead and teach the people without fear. According to the New Times, 11 investors will begin operating commercial farms on 4,000 hectares as part of the Gabiro Agribusiness Hub initiative in April, with the goal of boosting export and reducing imports. The hub is located in Nyagatare and Gatsiwa district in the Eastern Province. It was developed to cater for the country's food security needs and offset the trade balance where the imports still outstrip exports. It was initiated through a partnership between the government of Rwanda and Netafim, an Israeli-based firm considered a global leader in irrigation. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, the project also aims to develop an advanced agricultural ecosystem and modern value chain with advanced water infrastructure, innovative irrigation systems, high-value agro-processing operations, and other agrotech activities across the value chain. This means that 4,000 hectares to be leased to investors could generate a fee at least 1.5 billion Rwandan francs per year. Hanson Michomnyiza, the managing director at Gabiro Agribusiness Hub, said the investors who will lease the land in the project were notified and told the size of the land they will be allotted. He added that overall the infrastructure in development was at over 90%, and it is expected the project infrastructure development will be completed in April this year. Roads to carry the agricultural produce to the market were completed, while water infrastructure was at 90%, electricity supply was at 85%. He pointed out that an estimated 8 megawatts of power will be needed to run the project operation. Street tennis is a new sport recently introduced to Rwandans following the bilateral partnership between Rwanda and Barbados, a country in the West Indies. The Rwandan government has also encouraged sports and physical practice, and it plans to expand street tennis to different parts of the country. Often played in recreation areas and residential areas, this sport can also be used to develop tennis skills and organize regional tournaments or attract tourists. This game has the advantage of attracting many people, both Rwandans and foreigners. It can also create opportunities for tourism. The country has many roads in the city of Kigali and around the capital. It's a game that doesn't require a lot of infrastructure as long as it is aimed at communities. People are receiving it very positively. Barbados is the home of the famous godfather of tennis, Dayton Parr. The road tennis is widely played on the island, and it has already been successfully exported to California, United States of America. Rwanda is the first African country to host this sport. Rwandan sports officially say the game is very affordable and can be played by anyone provided they have the space. We'll be back shortly with economic news.
Economic News is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a total turnover of 1 million Rwandan francs from 4,000 Bank of Kigali shares on the equities market, while the fixed income market remained quiet. Equities market closed as follow. Bank of Kigali at 250 Rwandan francs, Simerwa at 120 Rwandan francs, Bralirwa at 150 Rwandan francs, I&M Rwanda at 44 Rwandan francs, MTN Rwanda at 180 Rwandan francs, Equity at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 Rwandan francs, and R&H Baf buffalo at 526 Rwandan francs. The exchange rate today, the United States dollar was buying 1,066 and was selling 1,087 Rwandan francs. The British pound was buying 1,309 and was selling 1,336 Rwandan francs. The euro was buying 1,148 and was selling 1,171 Rwandan francs. The Kenyan shilling was buying 8.6 and was selling 8.7 Rwandan francs. The Tanzanian shilling was buying 0.45 and was selling 0.46 Rwandan francs. The Ugandan shilling was buying 0.28 and was selling 0.29 Rwandan francs. The Burundian francs was buying 0.51 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.52 Rwandan francs. We'll be back shortly with international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Gambia's President Adama Barrow said on Tuesday that his Vice President Badara Alieu Joff has died of illness in India. Barrow said on Twitter that Joff had died after a short illness without providing further detail. Joff, aged 65, was appointed Vice President of the West African country in 2022. He had previously served as Educational Minister. The Vice President had left the Gambia about 3 weeks ago to seek medical treatment. Mr. Barrow picked him as Vice President after being re-elected in December 2021 for a second term. In June, Mr. Joff expressed dissatisfaction about the conduct of public affairs, saying Gambians had great expectations and business as usual would not lead to decisive change. Morocco and Israel have agreed to strengthen their military cooperation by expanding it to intelligence and cybersecurity during a bilateral defense meeting in Rabat. The staff of the Royal Armed Forces, FAR, in a press release said the two countries agreed to further strengthen this cooperation and expand it to other areas including intelligence, air defense and electronic warfare. This announcement follows the first meeting of the Monitoring Committee for Moroccan-Israeli Defense Cooperation, which took place on Monday and Tuesday in the Moroccan capital as part of the military rapprochement between the two countries. The meeting was co-chaired by FAR Inspector General Belkir El Farouk and Director of the Political Military Affairs Office of the Israeli Defense Ministry, Dror Shalom. The two parties also examined various aspects of their cooperation, including logistics, training, as well as the acquisition of modernization of equipment. In November 2021, former Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz signed a memorandum of understanding in Rabat governing security relations with Morocco. His historic visit was followed in July by the former army boss Aviv Kochavi, the first by an Israeli chief of staff to the Sharifian kingdom. The rapprochement between Morocco and Israel has accelerated since this diplomatic normalization carried out in December 2020. Within the framework of the Abraham Accords, a process between the Jewish state and several Arab countries supported by Washington. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi on Tuesday said the M23 rebel group had not fully withdrawn from areas it seized in eastern DRC, accusing the militia of faking an agreed pullback of its forces. Regional leaders brokered an agreement in November under which the Tutsi-led group was meant to withdraw from recently seized position by January 15th, 2023 as part of efforts to end the conflict that has displaced at least 450,000 people and sparked a diplomatic crisis between Congo and neighboring Rwanda. During a panel session at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Tshisekedi said despite the international pressure, the group is still there. They pretend to move, they act like they're moving, but they're not. They're simply moving around, redeploying elsewhere, and they stay in the towns that they have captured. His comments were the most outspoken from the Congolese authority as far on how they view the implementation of the peace deal. The French journalist Maria Malagadis is said to appear in court on Thursday, January 19th, over a complaint by Alois Niwiragabo, one of the suspected mastermind of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, something that baffles rights activists. According to France-based Collectif de Partis Civils pour le Rwanda, CPCR, which has worked for nearly 3 decades to see genocide suspects living in France brought to book, Malagardis, Africa manager at the newspaper Liberation, referred to Colonel Niwiragabo, a spy chief during the 1994 genocide, as an African Nazi, and he sued for defamation. The French journalist is the author of a book, Sur la piste des tueurs rwandais, named On the Trail of Rwandan Killers, that tells the story of CPCR's effort on tracking genocide fugitives in the European country. Niwiragabo, who arranged meetings that planned massacres during the 1994 genocide, was also co-founder of the genocidal FDLR militia based in DR Congo. In a press release, CPCR President Alain Gauthier posed several questions regarding the mysterious case of Niwiragabo. The CPCR still poses what support has he been able to benefit from to continue to live in incognito in French territory. In July 2020, a French newspaper exposed the link between Niwiragabo and the well-entrenched network of extremists there who share the same genocidal ideology. Earlier, after 7 months of careful investigation, French journalists found Niwiragabo hiding in Orleans, a city in north-central France. In July 1994, when many genocidaires fled to Zaire, now DR Congo, Niwiragabo was one of them, and in 1996 he moved to Kenya. Later it is reported he took refuge in South Sudan until he later arrived in France, where he remains holed up. In August 2020, Kigali hoped that relevant authorities in France would respond positively, arrest and extradite him, but nothing happened. At the time after his whereabouts were confirmed, Kigali updated his case file up to 25 witness accounts, pinning him in his role in the massacre nearly 29 years ago were recorded, and subsequently sent an international arrest warrant and an extradition request to France. The police officer who killed the African-American George Floyd and set the United States on fire in 2020 is trying from Wednesday to have his murder conviction overturned during an essentially symbolic appeal trial. Derek Chauvin, aged 46, was convicted of murder by a northern Minnesota state court following a high-profile trial in 2021 and sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. He believes that his rights to a fair trial has been violated, particularly given the publicity around the case and the threats of violence, which should have caused a change of scenery from the hearings, and calls for the cancellation of the verdict. Whatever the outcome of this appeal, Derek Chauvin will remain in prison because he pleaded guilty to civil rights violation of George Floyd before a federal judge and received a final sentence of 21 years in prison in 2022. On May 25th, 2020, this Minneapolis police officer in office for 19 years had remained kneeling on the neck of the black 40s for nearly 10 minutes, indifferent to his groans and the intervention of the panicked passers-by. The scene, filmed and posted online, sparked huge protests against racism and police brutality across the United States and beyond. During the trial in the local court, his lawyer pleaded that George Floyd died of an overdose combined with health problems, and assured that Derek Chauvin had made justified use of force. Today, the former police officer seeks to invalidate this trial, especially because it was held in the twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, which were still on the edge less than a year after a tragedy. Lawyers for the former policeman criticized the court for having refused to organize the hearings in a rural area of the state, or failing for not having housed the jurors away. According to them, this would have prevented them from discovering in the middle of a trial that the city of Minneapolis had decided to compensate up to $27 million those close to George Floyd. And that brings us to the end of today's program. The headlines once more. President Paul Kagame addressed delegates during the African Conference for Peace that is underway in Mauritania on Wednesday, January 18th. Religious leaders have pledged to put more efforts in fostering truth, healing, and reconciliation among Rwandans as the country continues to recover from the effects of the genocide against the Tutsi. The Ministry of Education, through the Rwanda TVET Board (RTB), has kicked off a feasibility study phase to establish TVET centers of excellence in all 30 districts of the country. Morocco and Israel have agreed to strengthen their military cooperation by expanding it to intelligence and cybersecurity during a bilateral defense meeting in Rabat. Gambia's President Adama Barrow said on Tuesday that his Vice President Badaha Aliyu Joff has died of illness in India. This was Alvino Mngali giving you the news. Thank you for tuning in, and this was Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Stay tuned, stay safe, and have a wonderful night.